The following show contains adult content. It's not our intent to offend anyone, but we want to inform you that if you are a child under the age of 18 or get offended easily, this next show may not be for you. The content, opinions, and subject matter of these shows are solely the choice of your show hosts and their guests, and not those of the Entertainment Network or any affiliated stations. Any comments or inquiries should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, and welcome to 50 Shades of Bullshit. I'm your host, Christine Lalonde, and this is the podcast where we uncover the truth about online dating. Now let's begin. Hey everybody, I'm Christine.
And I'm Steve.
And this is 50 Shades of Bullshit. So
and here we are.
Here we are, another week of bullshit. Hi.
Yeah, well, I think also we debunk bullshit as part of what we do. We have a job to do. It's very important.
Right? We debunk a lot of bullshit. We expose a lot of bullshit. We talk a lot about bullshit, and we just...
I think you're more about the exposing bullshit, and I'm more about the revealing. I don't know.
I love it. It's all about the bullshit, and that's my favorite word.
Yeah,
so.
Well... There's some wisdom in bullshit sometimes.
I think there is.
We just need to know the difference. I think maybe that's where the wisdom is sifting through bullshit versus...
Yep, I agree. It's shifting through and finding the I don't know, the knowledge, the truth, the exposing crazy shit that, people might think is wrong.
Given the conversation we're going to have today, I think it's really interesting for me thinking about what is bullshit. Bullshit is kind of like when you expect something to be something and it really doesn't deliver, or something
so.
Is presented as something that it's not.
I agree. I never thought of it that way, but I think you're right.
Yeah. People presenting themselves in a way that's phony, or believing in things that, are debunkable.
I was going to say shady, but I like debunkable.
Shady. I just made that word up, debunkable.
Debunkable. I put my sweater on because it was chilly and I had a tank on, but now it's hot as Hades in here, and I'm under the lights and talking about bullshit, and I'm probably going to start sweating when I start talking about, my psychedelic experience.
Why don't we start there? Because you did some research this past weekend. Yes,
I did. I'm trying to find that article that I just sent to you.
Oh, I should have done my research. Okay.
Here I go. Here we go. So I got this. It's funny because we started talking about, doing this show on psychedelics. And then I actually am on a mailing list for a place in Oregon who is I think it's 4 to 6 day or 7 day psychedelic. What's the word I'm looking for? Thank you. Retreat. And it sent me this article, and when I clicked on the full story, it gave me something a little bit more that I wasn't expecting. It's great. It talks about what it is and how how does it work, as well as the origins of what they call the stoned age theory, which I find very interesting.
I think it's stoned ape theory. Ape as in isn't that what you...
It's ape. It's ape. What I meant to say. It is not what I said, but is what I meant to say. Yeah, so ape theory. Stoned ape theory, which we'll get to. So first, Steve, tell us what it is you do when it comes to psychedelic mushroom experiences.
Yes. Well, let me back up a little bit, because people have heard me talk about a lot of things if you've been on the show that I do. But I think that if we could frame it inside of, I've really my whole life taken on examining things that are either unconventional or difficult to talk about. People have shame around. So, you know, I studied the area of sexuality and became a somatic sex educator and sex and relationships coach, because I really saw that people have shame in that area of your life. And I really wanted to see, where do I have shame? So I took a deep dive in that. And that became a big part of how I support people and really having conversations about sexuality and about shame and trauma that they have. So that was one area that I worked in. And then I started to explore this whole thing that started to emerge maybe 10 or more years ago about psychedelics. And when I was a teenager, I didn't do anything. I never smoked. I never drank. I never did any kind of drugs. Didn't even smoke pot. My brother smoked pot. I was not, I was a prude. But when I
Me
heard
too.
about, you were? Oh my gosh.
Well, I think the reason why I was is because I grew up in a family where drugs were really prevalent.
Ah,
Alcohol and drugs were really a big thing, and I was being abused, so I associated the abuse with the drugs and thought that that's why they were, behaving the way that they were behaving because of that. So I steered clear. Plus, I'm from the 80s and we saw all those commercials like, here's the frying pan, here's an
yes.
egg, this is your brain, this is your
Nancy
brain on it.
Reagan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't just
On
say no.
drugs.
Yeah. And I
And it
grew up,
scared me.
I was born in the 60s and grew up throughout the 70s. And that was in a very liberal city. So it was a very liberal time. However, what led the very liberal part of that time is what led to Nancy Reagan really making a statement about the dangers of drugs. And in many ways, that was true, how people were using drugs recklessly.
Right.
However, at the time in the 60s and 70s, you may have heard of Timothy Leary. You may have heard of someone who is called Richard Albert, who later became Ram Dass, and many others who started doing legitimate academic research with psychedelics. They were really studying on how we could access deeper states of consciousness, more awareness, spiritual and personal growth, and this is what's coming to the forefront now, treating specific mental illness such as PTSD and many more by using these substances. And back then, what I heard of mostly was magic mushrooms, which most people know of as psilocybin. There are a few other strains of mushrooms that people might hear about, but mostly when people refer to magic mushrooms, they're talking about psilocybin, which is a particular substance within the mushrooms that cause a psychedelic experience when ingested. That was mostly, and then I also heard about LSD made in a laboratory, and I heard about that, and I thought it was fascinating, but I was, like I said, a prude, and I was chicken. So both a prude and a chicken have you stay away from it.
Not only that, but in the 70s, I'm from a small town, and in the 70s, there was a prevalent family, a very wealthy ranching family whose son did like acid or LSD or something like that, and he could not function as a normal human being in society more. He just was messed up, and all he did was wander around town all fucked up, and that was terrifying. I thought, oh my God, if I ever try any kind of drugs, I'll have a heart attack or my brain will go crazy and I'll be like this person. And so it terrified me for a very long time. So I didn't even start smoking weed until I was almost 50.
Wow. Yeah.
So
I still haven't smoked pot.
no,
I've done edibles, but I have not smoked pot.
I think it's a much smoother transition when you're smoking weed rather than taking edibles, because a lot of edibles have, in my research with having my own cannabis infused edible company, I use the highest quality and I extract and infuse
Mhm.
myself, where a lot of these places are just taking, what's left over from their trimmings, and they're not using the best quality. You don't know what all is going in it, and you can
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
different kind of reactions with like gummies
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
brownies or whatever. It's not great. So it is a little different. I mean, I tend to do a vape pen instead
Mhm.
of, I'll smoke a joint or hit a bong with somebody, but that is a harder, stronger, hit, like experience. I go there quickly. But with a weed pen, it's just much smoother. I am a lot more in control in it. I can just do a little bit. It takes a little bit of the pain away, or it
Mhm.
relaxes me, takes my anxiety away, anything like that. It's a completely different animal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just not even remotely close to what I experienced with
Mm.
mushrooms compared to weed, because
Yeah.
weed doesn't alter my perception, and
Yeah.
but it allows me to, when I meditate, to go into different dimensions,
Mhm.
travel. I don't know what the word is that I'm trying to find. It's easier for me to, I don't want to say time travel, but kinda, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like I move into different things and I'm in control of that. Whereas with the, how do you say it? The silly psilocybin, whatever.
Psilocybin. I like silly Simon. Yeah. No,
Silly Simon. I
psilocybin.
had a silly Simon experience, and
Yeah.
I had no control.
Yeah.
None. I
Yeah.
wanted off that ride like
Yeah.
real fast.
Well,
But I'm
I'm going to
I'm glad
share a
I
lot
did it.
today so that people can kind of get a different sense about the different kinds of experiences. And you already touched on something where you talked about vaping or smoking some kind of substances. Even with cannabis, THC and CBD, if you
Mhm.
ingest it, same thing with uh, mushrooms, they are ingested. So it's processed through digestion and then it gets processed through the liver. That's going to give you one kind of experience, and some people actually, and I have psychoactive experiences with THC from cannabis edible. So, and I've never smoked it, as I've said. So,
Right.
so there are different ways that these substances are delivered that will make a difference. And I think
Yeah.
if we just scratch the surface, and people who are desiring to explore, that they do their due diligence. And then they should also know this is not legal in most places in the
Right.
United States at this point. It is still being researched. There is a strong pull to have it legalized. And I believe the legit research that's being done is moving things in the direction of making it readily available for people who want to do healing work.
Right.
And there's something to say. We could probably do a whole other show on the recreational use of these substances. That
Right.
is not my work. That is not my focus.
Right.
I really do support people who want to do this in a facilitated experience that is therapeutic or
Mhm.
spiritual. Because there's challenges around it, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But
Yeah.
but let me just say that so psilocybin is mushrooms,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
people grow them in a closet somewhere in their home, but they also grow out there in the wild. I mean, so these are
It's
substances.
from the wild. We didn't get them out of like thin air.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that this article talks about, is that, it is a compound which is it's in a certain species of mushrooms, and
Mhm.
like you said, they're most famously known as magic mushrooms.
Mhm.
They're saying that, you know the basic Stone Age theory is one that where it's a wild idea where, evolutionary science could be very intriguing. That, well, let's see, Terence
Mhm.
McKenna, he's
Yeah.
an I don't he is an ethnobotanist. Ethnobotan
Ethnobotanist. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I
He
think I've read something
suggests
by him. Yeah.
Yeah, he suggests a theory that our ancestors encounter with psilocybin. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Yeah. mushrooms. He said it played a critical role in the evolution of human consciousness. He says that these magic mushrooms aren't just exotic snacks, that they might have been given ancient humans unexpected cognitive upgrades, which
Mm,
now that I've done it, yes.
yeah.
So it's he says, now before you start imagining crowds of ancient humanoids as a wild mushroom at a wild mushroom party, remember that the theory is just that they grow in the wild and people were hunting and gathering, and they had you had to experience what the mushroom was to know what the mushroom was. Like Uncle
Yeah.
Joe probably died from one that was poisonous, and they're like, oh, that
Possibly.
one poisonous, don't
Yeah.
touch it. Other ones are like, oh wow, I had an epiphany of life, in the Stone Age. You never know. I think it's a valid theory
And
now
it's
that I've
interesting.
experienced it.
Yeah, it's interesting because apparently, and I read this somewhere, that animals won't eat them. There might be some species of animals that will, but most animals know not to eat them.
Well, they probably experienced it and saw a rabbit flip out and and
So
thought, well, he didn't die, but he had a hell of an experience, so let's stay away from that one.
yeah,
You
so
never know.
I want to touch on, because I know there's a lot of research and there's a lot of information that can be accessed about what happens biochemically. But I want to mostly focus on experientially what happens and kind of speak in general terms about what happens when we ingest psychedelic substances. So first, let me just describe how we experience life. Is that the way we perceive the world through all of our senses, we are mostly concerned with our survival. So we're looking for threats. We're looking to be looking to have discernment about how to be in the world so that I'm safe. Now that is, and there's centers of the brain that are all about our safety. And, everybody's heard the term fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn. So there are physiological things controlled by the amygdala, the part of the brain that's all it cares about is our safety. But that's the more sophisticated structures of the brain that developed later on still have that as a template. So some of our social engagement skills still have that in that, am I safe? Am I safe? Always looking to be safe. So there's certain things that we stop seeing because we learn not to look at them, or we rule them out. So, for example, if you're driving along, you can spot something that you need to put the brakes on quickly. But you also, like, remember when you first learned to drive, you're jerking the wheel around or slamming on the brakes really quick because everything looked scary. So you were much more jerky as a driver. But now, as time goes on, you can include much more stimulus as you're driving and not get, all jerky with the wheel or slam on the brakes, because you can discern what information is important, what isn't. So I would say that what some of these substances do is they soften, they make more malleable some of that discernment around some of the emotional issues or spiritual issues in our lives. So where we get stuck in certain behaviors that are not serving us somehow, but emotionally have kept us safe, we just keep doing it. We can't see, like, God, I know I keep doing that thing in relationships with people, but I can't seem to change the behavior. I have this belief or story about myself or about life that has me redoing the same thing, and I can't seem to unhook it. So a lot of people have a lot of success with therapy and talk therapy, but what some of these psychedelic substances, and a lot of people are using them in conjunction with therapy, in conjunction with dialogue and talking through things and journaling and wondering about things, is they're making essentially their story a little bit more malleable. So something in their emotional life, how they engage in the world around them, people that are important to them, they have more access to experimenting rather than the ways that they've been stuck that they know aren't working for them. So that would be a broad brushstroke of how people are using this to expand their ability to connect with themselves and others. I know that was kind of long-winded, but I hope that was
no, I love it. I in the college age, I
Mhm.
didn't go to college. I got a modeling contract, and that was
Mm.
in Denver, and I worked at a couple different places outside of Denver. So I lived in Boulder, Colorado,
Hmm.
when I was like 18, 19, 20. And during that time, I was really close to people who were going to college there in Boulder, because it's a small town and everybody my age is in college or working. And I was just working. And I had a group of friends that had mushrooms and coke and all that stuff all the time, and they partied hard, and I just never participated in it, because it of course it still terrified me, and I still had the negative connotation attached to it. um and the, all I knew from mushrooms is that everybody's experience was that they, the square in the ceilings,
Mhm.
they would say that when they were on the mushrooms, that the ceiling would do this, and then
Yeah.
the wall would breathe and all these things, and I was like, "Oh my god, how fucking scary." I
Yeah.
was like, I can't do that. I just can't." And I
Can I say
I
something about that really quick?
yeah.
Because if our perception about things is that the wall's gonna always be where the wall is, and
Mhm,
somehow now it's moving, it's like, whoa. Some
mhm,
people get fixated and fascinated on that, the fact that the wall is moving.
mhm,
Well, that might not be so valuable, but what might be valuable is looking to see how, wow, what other beliefs do I have that I think are set in stone, that so you get the symbolism of that experience. The
mm,
moving
mm.
wall is kind of entertainment. That's the entertainment
Right,
value.
right.
But the what that makes or allows you to start to question and consider is like, what else in my life do I believe to be solid and real that may not be so solid and real?
Mm. Well,
People even talk about seeing aliens and talking to, people who have died. That might be what's actually happening. I don't know, but what is possible if that were so? Rather than getting so caught up and fascinated by the experience itself, like,
right.
wow, what can I see about me and my life, and resolving some issues for myself that I couldn't see when I'm stuck in my ways.
Right.
So go ahead.
Well, Misty asked a question. She said, "What changed in your life that made you try things?" And
Oh, great question. Yeah.
I think that that was really kind of where I was going to start out with my stuff. Is that um, I was so rigid in my pain from the past, and attaching something like this kept me from being in the kind of mental anguish that I thought I would be in if I realized that it wasn't the drugs, it was the people that
Mm,
actually did those, that chose to be that way with me. And I
yeah.
think the thought of that terrified me more. But then as I
Mm,
got older and realized that life circumstances kind of shape you and shape the directions you go and shape the things that you do, and also how strong, weak, or whatever you tend to be as a person. As I got older, I started, as a mom, even started realizing things that, maybe I could have given my mom a break on, because I understood. And I started to think that maybe there, like you just said, Steve, that there could be some things that I'm rigidly stuck to that aren't true, that I could actually take the time to figure out if it's right or wrong for me, or good or bad,
mm,
or whatever. So as I started getting older, I started, really looking into things like, what does weed really do to you? What can it do for you? And especially, knowing the kind of pain that my mother was in her last days of before she died, and the only thing that gave her relief was weed. And it kind of led me on my journey to infuse and do my bakery with this, because right now I help people sleep. I help people with pain. I
mm,
help them get rid of their anxiety. And people think that weed is what gives you the anxiety. And it just depends on the strand, and it depends on what you're doing. But and I thought, well, if my misconception of weed was like that, could I have had a misconception of the medicine of mushrooms? Now,
mm.
understand that heroin and LSD and acid, those things aren't not natural. Those
Yeah.
things are man-made. And marijuana, weed, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, and mushrooms are natural made. They are the earth's medicine of the world. And I realized that. And then I really started to look into what could it do for me. And I realized that really, you know, the magic mushrooms are magic, are medicine.
Mm.
And I have, been on this healing journey that I talk about all the time here. We are almost 4 years in. We're a couple months shy of 4 years. My God, thank you all for being here all this time. Like, fuck yeah. It makes me so happy. But I thought, as I started growing and changing and learning and experiencing and healing, that, oh my God, maybe I'm healed enough to experience something like this. And like, I started learning about what's the other thing that you ingest and you have some crazy experience and you could throw up a lot. Um, oh my God, what is it?
Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, yeah. So I knew I wanted to try ayahuasca because a lot of my friends had done it, and I really was thrilled about the experience for them and fascinated. And then many said, Christine, you really need to do mushrooms first. It's the step before the ayahuasca.
Mm.
And I think I realized that I think I felt healed enough to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a very good thing that I'd come as far as I had, but I really didn't think that I could, I thought I could go further with my growth, but I'm really good. I love myself. I'm doing great. I had no idea how much more I had to go
Hmm.
until I had these experiences.
Yeah. So both
And
mushrooms and ayahuasca, these are teacher plants.
teacher
So
plants,
these
yes.
will open your perception to see things, experiencing things, feel things that you might have over time. Like maybe when we were infants, we were blown open and available to all stimuli. And
Mhm.
I don't remember being an infant that saw, hallucinations. I don't remember that. But I do know that over time, we start to form a worldview that only allows us to see certain things
Mhm.
experientially and,
Right.
and biochemically too. So these teacher plants open that for us. And so people have really, some of the experiences are dark for people, and some
Right.
of them are really beautiful and magnificent.
Right. I
So,
really think it depends on the journey you have to take.
mhm,
Now, one thing that comes to mind always when we talk about any kind of psychedelic or anything like this,
mhm,
any kind of teaching, um, plant or whatever you want to call it, is that we only use 10% of our brain.
mm,
So I thought, I know that I think I use a lot more than 10% because I have tapped into a lot of my own personal abilities. Um, and so I think that people, as they start to really evolve and grow and really work on, the ability to do things psychically, that they start to
mhm,
expand their brain. And I think that these type of medicines help access parts of our brain that we don't know. It's part of our subconscious.
yeah.
And it was dark for me, but it was something I would never give away.
Mm,
Like my experiences have literally changed me. I,
mm,
I, I couldn't have done as much growth without this. I will tell you now. I feel changed. My brain feels changed. The kind of things I do now, it is evolving. And I really have felt. I think the most important takeaway for me is that I needed to have something clear the shit out of me that I couldn't clear in any way that I've tried so far. Okay. To be open for what's coming. My
mm,
higher self showed me what is coming and allowed all the garbage to clear out, clean up, get rid of it so that I am a healthy, empty vessel not waiting, allowing to show up in my life that I needed to be. I couldn't still be holding on to things and still be in the place that I need to be to move forward in the directions that I need to move forward. I can't. I couldn't. And that is what this did for me more than anything.
Yeah. Now, this was a recent experience that you had?
Yeah. So I did 2 in a row,
Mhm.
like about a week apart.
Mm.
I didn't know I should wait a month or so. I don't
Mhm.
know shit. I thought
Mm.
I investigated enough. Nah, nah, nah.
You
I
should
didn't
talk
know
to me
anything.
beforehand.
Mhm. Well, a good friend of mine did it with me, and we, he also, learned a lot about it, and we did our thing, and I was really happy with how it turned out in the end. But going through it was crazy.
Mhm.
Um, so a lot of people who have been here for listening to the show for a very long time knows that I have been through a lot of trauma.
Mhm.
And when I did this experience, I took too big of a dose, too much all at one time.
Mhm.
We didn't know you're supposed to start out little and work your way up. Um, but I'm the balls to the wall kind of girl, and I'm go big or go fucking home.
Mhm.
And I just went all the way. And I I have to say that if I hadn't been as strong of a person surviving what I have survived in my life, I probably would have been way too overwhelmed and wouldn't have been able to process it and handle it properly later.
Mm.
Because I have been through so much and because I have been healing so much, um, I think it was a little bit easier to process and refocus my thoughts since then. So a couple of weeks ago, I did my first batch and I did 3 grams
Mhm.
out the gate. 4, I think, is the most you're supposed to take. Says Mickey says, "Do you feel it would have been a better experience with the person sober watching you and helping you walk Probably, yes. But the person who did it with me had a completely different experience than me. He did not have anything dark. He did not have anything hallucinating. He does not. His was just feeling like he was out of body, and that was it. Completely in control, completely aware, not having any kind of crazy experience. What he realized is what he said to me was, I just realized my experience is to support you through yours. And thank God for that.
Mm.
It was a little scary. It was a lot scary because I had no idea and I took a lot and my brain just went crack open and it just went hog wild on the journey that I went on. It was demons and entities and dark uh um what's the word I'm looking for? Dark entities. I don't know what else to call them.
Mm.
Demons. I called them demons.
Mhm.
And it just felt like it was all the horrible things that had happened in my life. When you have a negative thing that happens, darkness stays. It's like with a house or an object that people call haunted. It is a residual dark energy.
Mm.
And I had a shit ton of dark energy left in my body. Um they can alter your mind in a permanent way of healing. Let's just put it that way. Missy said, or can these plants alter your mind in a permanent way at all? In a Personally, I truly believe that it's in a positive way. It opens your mind like it never has before, and it allowed some true healing. I'm not as procrastination anymore. The thought process is stronger and clearer. I don't feel like I live in a fog. I don't feel like I live in heaviness or pain anymore. I can I just it has completely changed me in the most extraordinary way. I went through 6 hours because it was 3 Lucky Grams.
Mm.
Psycho. I'm a psycho. I'm a psycho on psychedelics. It just really felt healing the whole time. When I opened my eyes, I could see the dark entities. So I kept my eyes closed, and the whole time I just could feel them. I knew they were there, and I could feel them, and I could see them in my mind's eye, but I wasn't every time I opened my eyes, I saw demons. So I just kept my eyes closed because I knew they weren't there, like physically there. I knew it couldn't hurt me. I knew, I knew these things. What I didn't know is that what I didn't know going into it is that you're still coherent and you can still talk and have a conversation. I did not know this, and this was helpful because I was feeling like I needed to describe what was happening a lot of the times. And oh my God, it was a very difficult thing to go through at the time. But
Yeah.
what I was doing is I was clearing and getting rid of the dark entities in my life. I was fighting them in a battle. I was psychically, mentally, emotionally killing them and releasing them and getting them out of my life. Does that make
Well,
sense?
yeah, but I need to say something here because this is, I think people, in response to this question, can it alter your mind permanently in any way at all? Yeah, and it's not always a good thing. I think some people are experimenting with these in a way that's reckless. You said you
Like
did
me,
a lot of you said you did a lot of research, and
but
yet
not enough.
you still had an experience that was kind of random, kind of like a
Right.
crap. You didn't know
Right.
what you were going to get, and you didn't have
Right.
anyone there with you who had been through an experience. They knew where you were, even
Right.
though you're having your own experience and they're not in your mind. A trained facilitator can actually sense where
Yes.
you are. They're like a tether to this world as
Right.
you're exploring something. So there's this sense of emotional safety. So I definitely encourage people to have someone who knows what they're doing,
Right.
who's been trained. I mean, there are formal trainings now that people can take. Mostly this was trained through this was community medicine, this was tribal medicine, this was indigenous medicine passed down. And people learned by sitting with the facilitator or the shaman in some cases. And nowadays there are also people who take a weekend workshop and then they're calling themselves a shaman. So you do need to be mindful about this and make sure.
I agree. I will not do it again without a facilitator.
Yeah,
I won't. I've done it twice. I had 2 different experiences, but they were both really traumatic while I was having them. The first one was about dark entities, but the thing is that I was going through a journey during it. It wasn't just pointless, dark, scary shit happening to me. I was literally clearing it out of my life. I cleared it out of my past, out of my ancestral past. I cleared it from my mom and my grandmother's left energy that is here. I started picturing people in my life, and I could see what their demons were or their dark entities that were clinging to them. And I was literally taking them off, getting rid of them.
Yeah.
And my higher self kept
Can I say something
saying,
about this? Because you're using a kind of vocabulary that's going to appeal to some people, which is great. And I have a friend who she's way into that, and she's a very highly trained facilitator. And then there are some facilitators on the end that they have a very clinical approach. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. But I want to highlight this because I think it's important to know, how do I pick a good facilitator? Well, one of the things is that language you're using is familiar and comfortable for you to explore within. So you want to find someone who can speak that language, who knows how to help you navigate when you talk about entities. I would have a different way of phrasing it, but I could speak about it. But that's not my home base, talking about entities, and that's not. But I can certainly guide someone who's having an experience like that, because I've been around people who are and use that language. So I just want to highlight, one thing to look at if you're going to choose a facilitator, which I highly recommend, is one thing: do they speak the language that I speak? Is their connection to spirit or God or whatever you call it familiar to me, similar to mine, so that I can actually be in conversation with this person when I'm in a deep state? So there's a few other things I want to touch on, but I just wanted to highlight that.
You also have to keep in mind that I had no fucking idea I was going to see dark entities.
Yeah.
And my second time I didn't see them. It was a completely different situation.
But that you have the language dark entities made it something that you could talk about, where somebody else might think, oh my God, I've lost my mind. I'm having a psychotic break.
They could, yes.
So on the one end of the, and a clinical person might start talking to them that way, for better or worse. I don't know. But you want to, I think one of the things that the most important thing is that people feel safe during their experience, even if they're off there kind of tripping balls, having this experience where they're exploring something really outside of the realm of what they ordinarily experience in day-to-day life.
I think for me, while I was going through this, is that I realized that I had a lot of trauma in my life.
Yeah.
And with that trauma comes a footprint of darkness.
Yeah. That's another way. That's a great way to say it.
And I had to get rid of those. I had to clear those from my energy.
Yeah.
I had to clear it from my mind. I had to clear it from my past. I had to clear it. And so it's would the facilitator have to have been through one of these experiences? I would not want to do the plant.
So absolutely, you don't want to do this with a facilitator who doesn't know the particular substance that you're doing. You want them to know what it feels like in all of these different stages, so that say, oh, I can see where you are.
Right.
I can see. So I have facilitated quite a few journeys with groups, and I could feel people and see, and I think one of the key things is making sure people are not distressed, and how to help them feel grounded if they're exploring something scary or that might be so far outside of the range of what they explore emotionally or spiritually in their day-to-day life, and they're out there seeing things and thinking things that you could actually, sit with them and maybe even without words, let them know that they're safe.
Right. I think that if I had somebody who was aware of what was happening to me while I was going through it, to just be able to say, this is normal. It's okay. I think that would have helped me because the person that was with me didn't know. He just was there supporting, just saying, it's okay. It's okay. Take your time, which was fine. But, one thing that I have to say is that I was very comfortable with that situation because this person is very aware of all of my trauma, all of it. So I didn't feel uncomfortable with experiencing and verbalizing and saying, oh my God, that fucking dark devil entity that was the footprint left over from my step monster is clouding my life and clouding my brain and keeping me from really healing because I can't understand how to get over it or how to get past it. And this helped me do that.
Yeah.
And the whole time I kept hearing from my higher self, I kept hearing her say, you're a healer, you're a creator. Because the three things that I set my attention of before I did this was, one, that I wanted to meet my higher self. Two, I wanted to know what my purpose was. And three, I wanted to understand, certain things about myself, that I did. And being a healer was one of them. And it really helped me understand what that means, that I psychically was able to go in and heal some things, not only for myself, but for other people in my life. And I'm seeing little things that are leading towards understanding what that actually meant. It was wild. But my second time that I did within a week, I did a different, lesser kind of mushroom that was not as supposed to be as strong. So I started out at a 0.5 and really nothing was happening. And nothing was really, and I thought, okay, so I can add a little bit more. So I added another 0.5 and I skyrocketed. I went into space again, but this time I went into the matrix and I saw the grid. I saw my higher self past it. I've had some big issues with religion in my life. We had talked about this, that my step monster told me when I was a child and all through my teenage years, and I have no problem discussing this now. In the past, I wouldn't have been able to. But he had said we were very religious growing up. Very. I was all into the whole God thing and religion. And he said, you need to pray real hard that God will make me stop behaving this way to you, the mental, the emotional, the physical, the sexual trauma that he gave me. He said, you got to pray real hard so God can make me stop. And that is a mental fuck. And I prayed hard every day, all day. And then when it would repeatedly happen, he would say, oh, well, first of all, either God doesn't love you or you didn't pray hard enough. So I left the world of religion and don't believe in it. And I don't believe in a God. And I believe in a higher power, but it's a higher conscience where we're all connected to. I believe in the universe, a karmic energy, regular energy, whatever, psychic energy. But what I was shown in my second one was that the saying in the Bible that we are created in the image of God. And what was shown to me is that my higher self is my own personal God. Your higher self is yours. Somebody, Mickey's higher self is theirs. Misty's higher self is hers. And so that's why I was shown that is why we all have different religions and different gods, but they're all the same, but yet we all see them differently because it's in the own image of ourselves. Also, that whole, God knows everything. He only knows she only knows everything for me because she is my higher self. It's my choice to come here. It was my choice to live this life. It was my choice to have these lessons. And it was my setting of certain things prior to coming to this life that showed me the keys and the signs to wake up and to find it. And that's what I felt this one was. Now, I will say it was very depressing, but it was letting go of ego. I cracked my ego. I killed my ego. And because of that, the depression that I felt my whole life, I was feeling it in this second trip. But the thing about it is that I didn't feel it in my bones like I normally feel it. It felt kind of like just kind of sitting there, hovering there. And I kept thinking, this is why people connect to, unaliving themselves, because they see things, they feel things, and they don't understand it. And it's too much for them. Because I have a lot of experience with that. And the thing about it is that I realized that I was just seeing it, acknowledging it, and letting it go. And I don't have the same pain and feeling and stress and depression that I had before. That is all lifted. I don't live under a fog of depression anymore. And I've lived under that my whole life. So it was incredible. What's crazy right now is that we have less than a minute left. We don't have a guest next week, so why don't we continue this next week? Because there's so much to talk about that I think we'll do that. But I will say that it was the most extraordinary experience for me. While I was doing it, I kept thinking, Jesus, I don't want to do this. But I hung in there and I did it. And I did the self-care, the all the things I needed to do after the next day to really facilitate that for me and really let it sink. And talking to another friend who actually also is a facilitator for this type of thing, he actually helped me emotionally and mentally through it the next day. And that was amazing.
So let me just say one thing, because it'd be remiss not to say integration is important, more important than anything else, that you bring whatever lessons that you learn in the experience itself into your day-to-day life. And we did, it's a shame we just used the word. I didn't even say anything about it.
Exactly. Well, we are going to go more into detail next week. Why don't we just continue this next week? We'll go more into detail. We'll talk more about facilitating and about reintegration, things that people are not going to understand what we're saying right now. So we'll continue that next week. If anybody see my hand while we're talking, tomorrow is Lionsgate. It's 8/8. It's one of the biggest portals for manifesting, and it's a portal for money. And this is a money symbol that I have on my hand. It's a ruin. And I wear it from today all through tomorrow. And it's a portal to open money. So I'm all about that. So thanks for today. Thank you for coming, everyone. We just started scratching the surface. We'll be back next Thursday to talk about this again. Steve can tell you more about what it's like as a facilitator to go through that experience. And any questions that you have about my experience, you're welcome to think about them and join us next week on our live and ask. And so same place, same time next week. And until then, let's keep this shit real. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends, like and follow us on Instagram at 50 Shades of _bullshit and Facebook at 50 Shades of Bullshit. Thanks so much for listening, and we really hope to see you again next week.